Hello, this is Mr. Stansbury. I'm going to take you through the notes on sign diagrams. At the end of this, you should be able to say, I can draw a sign diagram for various functions. Okay, so a sign diagram shows us when a function is positive, negative, zero, or undefined. Okay, and really the big thing to think about this here is it's figuring out if the y is positive, the y is negative, and then the zero and the undefined will show you here. Okay, so over here, this y value is positive until it gets down to here. This is where it's 0. And then this here is where it's negative. And then back after here at 1, it turns back into positive. And then after that, it is back to negative. Okay, so really what you want to do for a sign diagram is draw yourself an arrow, a number line, and then find your x-intercepts and your asymptotes. So x-intercept is at -4, also at 1, and then we have an asymptote here at 2. Okay, the dotted line means that it's a undefined, that's an asymptote, and then these regular old straight lines here, that just means x-intercept. That's the x-intercepts are at -4 and +1. Okay, so if it's the left of -4, it's positive. If it's between -4 and 1, it's negative. If it's between 1 and 2, it's positive, and then if it's 2 or greater, then it's back to negative. And that there is a sign diagram. Okay? Draw the sign diagram for these. So first thing I'm going to want to do, find all my intercepts, x-intercepts. -6, -3, +4. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to draw pluses and minuses. All the pluses are above, all the minuses are down below. This is a plus, and this is a minus. So I know that my sign diagram, when it's to the left of 6, it's positive. When it's between 6 and 3, it's a negative. 6 and -6, and -3, it's negative. Between -3 and 4 is positive again, and then after 4 is negative. And that there is a sign diagram. Okay, same thing here. We just so happen to hit, we've got to find all of our x-intercepts. So here's 5, that'd be -5. Right, here is an asymptote at -2. So I'm going to put dotted line to show that it's an asymptote. And then there's change. Oops, I really should be making these like this. I kind of forgot over there, but this will be all right. There's 2, or another x-intercept, and then there's an asymptote at 4. Okay, so we found the x-intercepts and the asymptotes. Now, when we're to the left of -5, this thing here is positive, right? Now, when we're to the right of 5, and before we get to -5, and before we get to -2, it's still positive. So we have positive and positive again. Okay. Now, when it's between -2 and +2, this thing here is negative. When it's from 2 to 4, it's back to positive. And when it's after 4, we're back to negative. So there's our sign diagram. Okay. So we're going to draw a sign diagram for these graphs here. Okay, so really there's a couple ways you can do this. You can put it on your graphing calculator and just take a peek from there. That's pretty straightforward. Or you can also just figure out what makes each of these equal to 0. And I'm just going to do that for starters here. And then we can show it also on the graphing calculator. So -4 plus 4 gives us 0, and that's going to be an x-intercept. And then +1 minus 1 also gives us 0. So we're going to have, oops, I keep going too far down. So there we go. So we've got an x-intercept at 4, and we got another x-intercept at 1. Okay? So if you look at this here and you multiply x by x, this is the highest power of this thing is going to be x squared. So it's going to be some kind of quadratic function here. Okay, so it's going to look like a u, or it could be an upside down u, right? The way to tell if it's right side up or upside down is is this going to end up having a negative in the front or a positive in the front? This thing here is going to have a positive in the front, so this is a U is positive quadratic, and then a N is a negative quadratic. So since this is positive, this graph is essentially going to look like this. Right? There's our -4, and here's our +1. Okay, so you can just go through and figure out what this looks like. And you can figure out all these as well, and you can also do it on the calculator. But we've got this right here, so let's just use this. This, before it's to the left of -4, it's positive. Between -4 and 1, it's negative. And after 1, it is positive again. Okay, so again, we can show that on our graphing calculator. By all means, use it. It's completely fine. So I'm going to put my graph in there. So we do parentheses x plus 4, and then we put another set of parentheses and x minus 1. And you can put a multiplication sign in between those if you want, but you do not have to. I'm going to do zoom standard, which is number 6. And this should give us a pretty good look as to what that graph looks like. Hey, look, that's what we had. And then this is nice because it actually shows you exactly where these things cross. So there's our -1, 2, -1, 2, 3, 4. There's our -4, and here's our +1. So you can look at this right here and say, oh, -4, +1. It's positive when it's left of 4. When it's between -4 and 1, it's negative. And when it's after to the right of 1, it's positive again. Okay? So that's really the graphing calculator is a pretty quick and easy way to do that. So let's try the second one with our graphing calculator here. So we're going to do -2 and then parentheses x minus 3. And then we are going to take that to the second power. And then we're going to graph that thing again. We already did zoom standard, so we should be pretty good. Let's see what this thing looks like. Okay, so here's what we've got. Now it's -2, blah, 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 squared. So we know that it's going to be just a quadratic. So it's only going to have one turn. There's no other turns hidden down here. Okay, so if we do our sign diagram, we only have 1, 2, 3. At +3 is our only intercept. I keep messing that up. +3 is our only x-intercept, right? Okay. Now when you look at that, to the left of 3, it's negative. Okay, and when you look at it to the right, it's also negative. So there's our sign diagram for this function here. Okay, and then for C here, we can keep doing the same thing, keep putting this thing into the graphing calculator, and then away we go. So we got x, and then parentheses x minus 2 squared, and then we've got an x plus 3 squared. No, cubed, sorry, to the 3rd. And then we'll graph that thing. Okay, see what kind of weirdness we get there. Oh, wow, that's a lot going on there. So it goes down there, bottoms out down there, comes up through here, bounces off of that, and away we go. So we still have x-intercepts at -1, 2, 3. So we got, I'll get the hang of this eventually, -3. We also have, it comes back up here through 0 and then also at 2. So we also got one at 0 and at 2. Okay, so then now we can just simply look at this thing here. When it's to the left of -3, this thing is positive. When it is between -3 and 0, it's negative. When it is between 0 and 2, it's positive. And then when it is after 2, it's still positive. So that would be our sign diagram for that. Okay? Okay, we got one more example, but before we do that, let's take a little comedy break.
Middle of the afternoon, we'll just stop and go, Daddy, can I talk to you for a second? I'm like, yeah, what's up? She goes, I just want you to know I love you. Yeah, and I'm like, are you kidding me? I love you. She's like, no, I love you so much. I'm like, I love you so much. And she's like, no. I love you more than brownies. I was like, thank you. I love you more than gluten-free brownies. What do you say? I don't know what to say.
Okay, last example, number 9, draw a sign diagram for this here. So, again, I'd highly suggest putting this into the graphing calculator. We want both of these up here to be in parentheses, so let's put those in parentheses. So we've got parentheses 2 minus x, close the parentheses, and now we're going to divide by. Now we have two things together on the bottom, so we're actually going to need to do these in parentheses, each individually in parentheses, and then these together in parentheses as well. So we're actually going to do a little double parenthesis, x plus 1, okay, and then close it, open up a new one, and then x plus 3, and then close both of those. So now that will take 2 minus x and divide by both of those things, okay? Do graph, and let's see what this thing looks like. Wow, it's a big old mess, isn't it? Gosh, it looks like there might be a 0 down here somewhere. That's the only thing we probably got to figure out. So let's do this. Second, calculate, and let's see if there's a minimum over there. Okay, so let's start here to the left, and I'm just going to kind of watch my y value, and it's down to, ooh, look, it gets down to negative. Interesting. So it crosses through at, oh wait, I was looking for a minimum. What I want to do instead, sorry, second calculate, we want to find the 0 instead. Sorry, we don't really care that much about minimums, do we? We just care about when it's above and when it's below. So there, it's definitely above, enter. And now we're going to go over here to the right. And look, now we know for sure it's crossed through. Enter, enter again. And the x-intercept is at 2. So let's see, we know over there it appears it's just going to the asymptote. It's just not going to cut through at all. Really, so we only have one x-intercept here at 2. Right, but it also appears that we have some asymptotes going on here at -1 and -3, which is obvious because -1 plus 1 gives you 0 and -3 plus 1 gives you 0. So we got asymptote at -3 and also here at -1. Okay, and it does not appear on here that it's going to come back up enough to cross back through. We can kind of double check. I'm going to double check for you, and then because we're running a little long here. So I've gone out here, I'm almost to 30 and it's still in the negative, so we've hit everything that we need to know on that. Okay, so now we're going to go back to zoom standard so we can get a better look at that thing again, and so we can see exactly what's going on. So when it's here to the left of -3, this thing is positive. When it is after -3 and before it gets to -1, all of this down here is negative. Okay, and then from -1 up to 2, this is all positive. And then anytime after 2 right here, that's after it's crossed down and it's underneath, so then that's all going to be negative. So that's what our sign diagram is going to look like, okay? All right, that's all we have. If you have any further questions, please feel free to ask. Thanks.